everyone, it's Susan G. Coleman reporting to you live from Fox 74. On today's episode, we will discuss why nations go to war, what events led America to join World War I, and how the war impacted the United States. First, we're going to interview some random strangers and see what they think.
Hey Heather, why do nations go to war?
Because they didn't like each other and they weren't in alliances with each other.
Like turtle talk.
Because they have conflicts with each other.
Yeah. Because they didn't like each other.
Because they have previously formed alliances that gone against them, or they have disputing ideas.
They don't like each other.
Those were all really good answers. Now, to summarize, you could say that the nations joined wars because of conflicts, a struggle for power, or because they became allies with other countries. Also, they did it to become more involved in international affairs.
Okay, next one. What events motivated the United States to join the war, the World War?
Well, they joined alliances with someone.
You said that for the first one.
They formed alliances with certain countries.
You guys helping out other countries, and they were.
A huge factor that led the U.S. to join the war was accidentally siding with countries that were already involved. By making alliances, they had to join so that they could defeat their enemies or help the people that they liked. So another major event that led them to join the World War was the British blockade, which was when Great Britain sunk any ships who passed Great Britain, and so they killed 128 Americans, and obviously the United States wasn't happy about it. So they joined the U.S. So the U.S. joined the war so that they could take down Great Britain.
All right, next one. What was the war's impact on the United States?
Well, did they win?
The U.S. put a lot of money into the war, and it unified the country, the country's people, but it also sent the country into a depression because of the all the money that they spent. It left a big.
Well, they won, but they put a lot of emphasis on producing things for war, so it kind of changed the industry, and women became more independent.
Wow.
It unified the country. I took Brett's answer.
After the war, America suffered a huge economic crisis. Prices of basic materials skyrocketed after being so low for the war. That's also known as inflation. Also, the United States spent $2 billion in loans for war efforts, and Germany was supposed to repay them in the Treaty of Versailles, but that was not possible because they were in so much debt from the war. So we didn't really get that money back. There was also just not enough jobs for anyone because the war caused many immigrants to come to the United States, so there was way too many people for jobs available. And that caused a lot of racism and tension between different ethnicities because Americans thought that they should get the jobs rather than all the immigrants. So anger, racism, and an economic crisis were spreading. Now we're going to bring in Tori and Paige to discuss the next two topics.
So my question is, how did new industries change the lives of Americans in the 1920s? And all the new industries that were made, that were formed, they created new resources, like simple things like radios, toasters, alarm clocks, and other small appliances for household use. All this was a revolutionary departure from the industries which dominated the economy in the past years. It changed their lives forever as it introduced people to labor-saving devices in their homes. Radios brought music, radio stations brought news to other people to hear what's going on in the world. Refrigerators kept food fresh longer so people could save money. The economy was really blooming from this. More jobs were available, and cars were produced, and they were more popular, so they were more affordable for people to have.
My question was, how did people spend their time in the 1920s? This was known as the Roaring Twenties, and this is when new ideas and kinds of things were introduced. The 1920s was an age of social and political change. A lot of people invested their money, went to jazz dances at night, theaters, bars, and mainly spent their money on new products. Henry Ford revolutionized America into a motorized nation. People were buying cars, and then the radio and record selling was a big favorite for leisure activities. Everybody seemed to have a reasonably well-paid job and had a lot of spare cash to spend. 1920s, it just seemed to be the case that if you wanted something, then you got it. Buying something had a major economic impact. Somebody had to make what was being bought. This was the era before robot technology, so it was very labor-intensive. And by 1928, people claimed America rid itself of poverty. Two groups did not prosper at all. African Americans forced to do labor for poor wages and lived in poverty. The KKK made this even worse. Decent jobs went to white people. In the 1920s, the black population didn't share the economic boom. Only real outlet was jazz and dancing.
So, the third and final question is, how did nativism impact the United States? So after the Great War ended in Europe in the 1920s, millions of devastated Europeans were seeking refuge in other parts of the world. Many tried to come to the U.S., as well as many other major waves to new immigrants came to try to get rid of nativism. So Americans were disillusioned by the war and returned back to isolation. The USA shunned in diplomatic commitments to foreign countries. They denounced foreign radical ideas, commitment, and un-American. They thought that their ways were lifestyle, and that they were going to shut the gates to all immigration. And all this caused prosperity to the economy and spelt out doom for blacks, Catholics, Jews, and other foreigners. The formation of the hate groups, legal actions, and court decisions helped promote their new feelings, which is nativism. And nativism is the hostility towards foreigners, which is just what I explained that went on in the 1920s. So people just didn't like the presence from the other cultures and how they were different, and they just thought that they just weren't how they were supposed to be. So yeah.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Fox 74, and a special thanks to all the guests who joined and gave input. It was a great episode.